Welcome, newest listeners to Science Podcast. I am your host, Tatu, and here with me is special guest Giuseppe Melli, who is an expert in the minimum wage business. Giuseppe.
Hello, Tatu. Thank you for having me here.
Hello, listeners. Tonight we will be talking about minimum wage and what it's all about. So
let's get right to it. The cause of minimum wage. So how did minimum wage start?
So back when there was the Industrial Revolution in many parts of the world, there were sweatshops, and many of the workers did not get a good paying job, seeing as they weren't doing like high up jobs. So they needed more money, so they requested that, and that's when countries started experimenting.
And this leads us to the first country to use minimum wage, Australia, Victoria.
Yeah, so in Victoria, the state in Australia, they started experimenting, and it actually worked out because the workers were happy, and economy stayed the same, or maybe even improved a bit. But yeah, a lot of people started copying that, and in 1938, it was implemented into the United States for 25 cents.
And we now have a standard minimum wage throughout the country of $7.25.
Yes, that's correct, and that was established in 2009.
And then with the 1938.
So yes, 1938 is the original one. It's kept on going up, and in 2013 they also tried to bring it up even more to $10.10, and it was strongly pushed, backed by President Obama at the time. But they promised something.
They promised to reduce poverty without reducing jobs.
And this was a lie. So, a large, it was very probable that about 500,000 jobs would be lost if they raised the minimum wage to $10.10. So it was completely stopped in its tracks right there.
And they tried again in 2015 to raise it to $15?
Yes, and that was even worse because three-quarters of a million people would have lost their jobs. So yeah, 2013, 2015, raising the minimum wage was blocked off.
Giuseppe, as a Catholic yourself, this issue with minimum wage, does the Catholic Church talk about it in any way?
They took a stance on it back in 1891 with Pope Leo XIII when he wrote a book, Rerum Novarum, which is basically a very large book speaking of different problems that the church takes different stances on. And under the section Just Wages, it says remuneration must be enough to support the wage earner in reasonable and frugal comfort, meaning that the worker's pay must be enough to support him and his family to live, as it says, in frugal comfort.
So like a living wage, basically.
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
I mean, you gotta get paid enough to pay the bills.
Exactly. And, I mean, it's not just about, barely surviving. Frugal comfort means a little extra money to do as he pleases. Also, leading up to the next thing, later on it says, if a workman's wages be sufficient to enable him to maintain himself, his wife, and his children in reasonable comfort, he will not find it difficult, if he is a sensible man, to study economy. And he will not find it difficult by cutting down expenses to put by a little property. Therefore, what I mean by this, and hopefully what they meant by this, is that once they have acquired enough money, they will be able to finally make something their own and actually take some pride in it. And if they purchase something from the government and they want it to look beautiful, then the government will look beautiful. Like the country, like let's say somebody buys like 15 acres of land in North Carolina, or let's say Colorado, and they plant like a bunch of corn and other plants like that. Or somebody buys 15 acres and salts the earth. What is happening? One, if they salt the earth, they're not profiting off, so that's a waste. Two, it looks ugly. So, but seeing as men are prideful they should be prideful in things, they are hoping that once they buy something of their own, they will affect it positively.
And this can improve the economy. People who are able to pay for their kids' education, their kids can then go on and do better than their parents.
Exactly. And then the economy keeps on going up and up and up.
Well, with the current minimum wage, it's looking gloom and doom. But I think the future. What do you think about the future? I mean,
I think it'll get better. It should get better.
You think technology will play a part in it?
Oh, that's actually a really good question. Sadly, I think technology has actually taken some jobs. Actually, not taken some jobs, taken many jobs. Kind of like back in the Industrial Revolution, how when there were specific makers for things like shoe, people who literally made shoes, people who made clothes, they literally all had to pile in at the factory. So actually, I take back my previous statement. We might be going back into a different industrial revolution. But there's always a possibility that they'll figure out this drone system where there are still humans necessary, and we won't be having an iRobot scene where robots will be taking us.
Well, I mean, you also have to look at robots. I mean, when you have a machine that can do multiple jobs, why do you need multiple people?
Yeah.
Why do you need men? But who knows, man? Who knows? So hopefully, the future is promising.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
thank you for being with us on today's podcast. We'll see you
next week.
Yeah, so have a
don't
good day,
forget.
and try and get a job for those who are unemployed.
Yes.
朝をむさぼり夜を吐き出し悲観とする我がさが湧き立つこの感情は白か黒か目指す未来と置いてけぼりにしてきた過去ねじれながらぐんぐんとつながっている過ぎゆく螺旋に目を不思議な夢から